To talk about that the mama who didn't give her child the vaccinations that others are saying she should have. And what is the controversy this morning, Dina?
Okay, so a Michigan mom was sentenced to a couple of days in jail because she refused to vaccinate her child in an expedient time zone. So basically what happened is her child needed to have a certain number of vaccines before entering a certain grade level of school, just like the laws in California. They want to make sure all the students are vaccinated now. Same in Michigan, there are some exemptions. Well, this mom was told, if you do not vaccinate your child and get them up to date with all these vaccines by the following week, we will put you in jail. She said, okay, I'd rather go to jail than have my child have this many vaccines in a short period of time. So she was sentenced to jail time. And it just continues that conversation. She says, I think a vaccination needs to be the right of the parents, and the parents should decide what is best for their children. Now, little backstory, she is in a legal battle with her ex-husband. And part of the reason why there is a lot of discourse between these two parents is because of the vaccine issue, because she is so against wanting to vaccinate her child. I guess the husband feels differently, ex-husband. So now there's some legal guardianship stuff where they both have custody of the child. But she said, if you want me to put this many vaccines in my child's body at once, I think they gave her 1 week to do 10 vaccines, I believe. I have to double check. She said, what happens if my kid gets sick? Then that's on me.
Was she trying to play catch up by putting all of those, by saying 10 in 1 week, or was that protocol?
No, so these vaccines did not have to be administered this quickly. They were supposed to be done when the child turned a certain age, and then a next set over another age. And so the fact that she waited all the way up until the child needed to be at a certain level of school grade to be able to be admitted into class, at that point, it became your kid can't go to school unless they're vaccinated, and if you choose not to vaccinate, you're going to jail. So she was sentenced to jail time, and she did say, I take full responsibility for my actions, but she does agree that this should be the right of the parents. And the law has already been changed here in California, so you have to vaccinate your kids as well. But I remember covering that law a couple years ago at the state capitol, and so many parents came out to say that this should be the right of the parent to decide. But of course, all of the health experts will say you're not only doing it for your own child, you're doing it for those who cannot get vaccinated, those with cancer, those with big illnesses. You're trying to help the common cause here with getting your kids vaccinated.
Now, I just looked up too the Michigan state vaccination requirements, and quick fact, a child is exempt from immunization if a parent, guardian, or person responsible for the child presents a written statement to the administrator of the child's school or operator, and a lot of medical exemptions are allowed specifically for religious reasons. So you can get an exemption, it just appears, and again, this is just based off of what we know from the story.
And this is just in Michigan.
Just in Michigan, but because the father disagreed with that, it went to court along with other things, and then they did rule in favor of the dad to say, okay, he has to get the vaccinations. She said, I'm not gonna do it, like Dina said, and then the child has to get them anyway. She's gonna serve 7 days in jail, and he still has to get the vaccination.
I mean, I don't blame her for not wanting to then, in the end, have to pile up all of the vaccines and the vaccinations and put them in his body within 10 days. But I guess if you get to the root of what some are calling an issue, it's that she could have prevented that from happening and said, okay, do it over the course of time. But it goes back to that central question. People will say, like, oh, I don't believe, as if it's a belief or something. I don't believe in putting all of the foreign fluid in my child's body. People will try to link it to being on the spectrum for autism, but we had an expert in here a couple of weeks ago, probably like 2 months ago now. It's a similar story. It was about parents not wanting to vaccinate their kids, and it was a doctor in Florida, a doctor's office, who refused to even see a child who had not been vaccinated. And my question to the expert who we had in here, who does a lot of studying in that field, says that it is ultimately the right of the doctor's office to refuse, and it's not like he was saying, oh no, I don't want to touch you because you're not vaccinated. The doctor in Florida didn't want that kid to come in and then potentially infect the others in the office. So it's that great debate, but I had understood what this expert was saying. It sort of had changed my perspective. I'm all about, you should have that choice. You know, as a parent, I'm not yet a parent, but I would like to know that I have a choice. And the government or the, I don't know, people at the very top aren't saying, oh, you have to put these in the body, and then we wonder why kids are having certain things. But there was no link to autism. Like, there is no link according to this doctor who we had in his studies, and he was a doctor of Kaiser Permanente, and there is no direct link to kids that have autism and the kids that do or do not get the vaccines.
And as much as there have been medical studies to suggest there is no link, people are doing their own research in addition to what's being done by health experts and saying, no, I have found a link. I have found that this was directly correlated to this. But what our expert said was that it might have been something else. He said there are so many people who have vaccines who don't have autism that it's impossible to pinpoint those who do have autism and didn't get vaccines as the cause.
Right.
And so I think that from a parent's perspective, we all know, and Rob has said this, you're just trying to do what's right for your kid. You're trying to do what's right as a parent,
Not
what you
trying
feel
to
in
be
your heart.
rebellious.
Right, and this mom wasn't trying to do something, you know, to make everyone else in the world talk about her. She just felt it was her very personal right not to vaccinate her child. But as we have seen with the way that health laws are now going, this is a common practice in many states where they're going to start requiring it. If your kid's not vaccinated, cannot go to school, becomes truant, the parent can be jailed for their truancy.
Well, to me, the breakdown is between the two parents. So at some point, and I'm not sure the dynamic of their relationship. They're not together anymore. But as a couple, before you have kids, you talk about certain things.
Yep.
Was there a discussion on the table that says, hey, I don't believe in kids getting vaccinations? Was the husband on board with it at the time? Was he like, cool, you know, this was a thing? And then when they divorced, it got nasty, and then he switched his opinion. Did they get divorced because of that? Because to me, it got to this point, it appears, because both parents were not on the same page. Yes, they weren't together, but the dad wanted the kid to get the vaccination, the mom did. That's, to me, where the breakdown was. Did you agree initially and change your opinion now we're here? Because if they both said, we don't agree with vaccinations, I can understand why the mom was so adamant about it, and now there was a shift where he's like, okay, well, now today I am. And so where was the breakdown with that?
And to be clear, she was found to be in contempt of court, so now he has custody of the child. So this did become a much bigger issue.
Clearly she's a passionate mother, again, just trying to do what's best, what she thinks for her child. I do want to get to the comments here. Kimberly Morgan, thank you, hello, happy Thursday.
Good morning, Kimberly.
We're a family that chooses to vaccinate our children, but it does concern me when nurses tell me how many vaccines they're giving them in one sitting. I dislike the shove from doctors on certain vaccines that aren't mandatory at this time. So I'm nervous that this will be a next step here in California. No one should force another to vaccinate. This is from a mother's perspective.
Yeah.
I respect that. I respect the fact that you choose to do it for your family or not, and you don't push those standards on other people, but there are going to be a lot of people who say, no, this needs to be a mandate because it's about keeping everyone safe. And then you're doing others an injustice by then sending your kids to school. So I guess the other option is if you don't want to vaccinate, then what, you homeschool? And if you don't want to homeschool, then you should leave the state that you don't like the laws, which
that's never an easy. Yes, it's not easy when you have a job and other things. No, I know, and you know, for people who are out there seeing this story and thinking, oh my gosh, I know Kimberly first put no vaccinations equals jail time. I mean, there was much more legality involved with the custody rights issue with the father, so that's not the only reason, but the headline reason is because it came down to her not wanting to do something that the father wanted her to do. And I think when it comes to, you know, being a parent in today's society, you really trust in your health professionals to be guiding you along a certain path. And at what point do you start to say, well, you know, I'm doing my own research, I'm finding things out on my own that I just don't like. Maybe there's no scientific evidence or proof of it, but does that mean that I have to do these things just because you're a health professional telling me I have to? I mean, that was the big debate when this bill passed in California, people saying, you might be right, but I still have my belief into thinking that it's just not what I want for my kid.
And I mean, and then medical history has shown this. There have been incidents since the inception of America where you have been advised by medical professionals to do X, Y, and Z, but you were led to believe something that wasn't true. Look at the Tuskegee experiment in regards to syphilis. So there has always been a mistrust in regards to what people are telling you. So it's perfectly fine to do your own research, and it's perfectly fine to not want to do something just because someone tells you to do it. But for me, again, beside all that, I'm still stuck on the breakdown between both of them.
You think this is more it's a
Because-
conflict of the mom just saying, I don't want it because this man who I'm trying to divorce or have divorced wants me to?
Or at some point, if you're getting with someone and you have such strong opinions about something like vaccination, the fact that it has gotten to court to the point where it's now a court-ordered mandate, you should have known that up front. If he was this adamant about it, where was the communication up front? Because they could have avoided this if they both agreed or disagreed in the beginning
Well,
of it.
sometimes
And some people change.
Yeah, sometimes I think things come up along the way.
Yeah.
You know, I know there will be a lot of people who agree or disagree on religious beliefs, and you talk about those things when you're a couple before you get married. Ideally, how do you want to raise your kids? Do you want them to be baptized? Do you want them to be religious?
Right.
Which
You're
religion?
taking them to church every
Right,
Sunday.
and I
Right.
think that these and please parents chime in, you know, these conversations probably can shift, the narrative can shift as you discover things about yourself and when you actually have the child versus before when it was just a thought process. And so I can see how maybe, even if she was adamant and he wasn't, maybe she was thinking they would come together at some point.
Yeah.
But I do think that it does remind me that when I go home tonight and talk to my husband, that I'm going to be like, okay, which conversations do we need to have?
Where do you stand?
Where do we stand?
Let's get back to the comments here
Yeah.
because there are two different sides. Renee Field says, please wake up, humans. Things are not as they appear. They are not only doing harm to our children. Look into the Healthy People 2020. Look into Healthy People 2020. They are coming after all of us adults, elderly. This is not for our safety. Read the insets. The information is there. We are being lied to. So people are very passionate about this. Patricia, no, let's go to Nina Pierce, who says, I think everyone should be able to choose. It is their right. I get the mandatory ones for my kids and nothing more. We don't even do flu shots in our house. I think no judge should have the right to make you take your child to get shots. That's your child. No one else should have a medical opinion over them but you and their own parent.
And I'm seeing Gwen Wallace say, my dad lived to be 96, died of old age, never had a shot, and didn't allow us to have them. That is probably one great story out of not being vaccinated, but I also know that health experts have told us in the past there are new diseases popping up every year, and the amount of close proximity you spend to people now might be different, or different diseases spreading faster now because of the perfect situation. I mean, there are so many things that are in the universe that can harm you, and I know health experts, and specifically that doctor from Kaiser we had, and I'm sorry I'm forgetting his name right now, said, you know, we want to be ahead of those things, because once it happens, then we're in trouble. Because once things start to spread, think about Zika. Once it exists and it spreads, then it's
out there.
then it's an
It lives.
epidemic. So he said, you know, his perspective was there is nothing to show that these vaccines are harmful, and they are better to be given than not, was his perspective. And he had years of professional experience to back that up. But again, parents are still going to feel away, and I get that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, people, if that's your choice, that's your choice.
But it isn't your choice in a lot of situations.
It's not your choice.
Right,
in a lot
unless
of
you leave,
situations,
it's your choice to leave the state if
or
you
you
don't
get an
agree.
exemption.
Or you get an exemption.
Yeah.
And a lot of the big pharma debate had come up when the doctor was here, and he's like, I don't get a cut. I don't get it. I'm not doing this I'm not in this research and coming out and putting his opinion and the opinion of everyone else, of his researchers on the line. I'm not getting a cut from Big Pharma. He's like, so it's not about that. It's about me being passionate about being in the field and saying, these are the studies we've done. And yes, when you look at the back of a lot of these medications, or you look at the vaccines and see what's in them, there are very intimidating words. There are things that you think don't belong in your body, but you don't even realize sometimes your body already creates these fluids in your body. And so it's the medical field that I haven't studied. I would like to trust and believe in my doctors, because this is their field of work.
And you know, yesterday, for all, you know, the sake of full disclosure, I got my flu shot. And I know every year they change the strain of, you know, what they think the flu is going to consist of every year, depending on what's going around. And I asked to see the back of the label, because I said, we change the strain, the different strings of it every year. And she said, yeah. And she showed me the label that the flu shot has. There are like 30 things that I would never know how to pronounce. And the doctor said, sometimes that's intimidating, because a parent will see that and think, why would I put any of this in my kid's body? But like you said, Megan, a lot of that stuff already exists. And so he said, you can always ask when you're at the doctor and your kids are getting their shots, their vaccinations, you can always ask to see the label, but without any context and without someone explaining all of that to you, it might be like, whoa, I don't want that in my kid's body, but it may already be there.
Right.
So.
Rye bread says rye bread. I like the name. Parents aren't doctors though always. When your kids get sick because we didn't get them a shot, but another kids with living conditions constantly being sick, getting our kids sick, it feels horrible. Each body is different, and so you want to. A lot of times when your kids are sick, I'm sure, again, this is me, a lot of times when I'm sick, you want to link it to something. Oh, it must have been because I ate that, or because I drank that, or
because
maybe
I
it's because of
coughed on
that
you.
shot, or because you coughed to me. You, as human beings, we want answers. We don't like things that don't have a little button at the end. Like, what is it, so I can get to the root of the problem and then not do it or do it again. So this debate continues on and on. But this mother, so it's for sure, she's serving the time currently, or she's going to?
I believe. Let me see the
Not
exact
that that's
wording.
exactly important. I just
And it's
was
7
interested.
days, to be clear.
And
So-
I was probably like, you know what? It's worth it for me because I feel strongly about this.
She has been sentenced
But the kid
to
still
7
has-
days.
But the kid is still going to get all the
still
vaccinations.
has to get the shots.
So in the end,
But she said it was worth it.
Yeah, she stood up for what she believed in.
And and if you see the interviews with ABC News, she's saying, I don't care if I have to go to jail. This is what I want.
yeah. And I guess for a lot of people, if they don't like something, you stand up for your right.
Yep.
If she feels she has this right, and she will fight, I'm sure, to the day she dies. There we go. How do you feel? Keep commenting.